Welcome everybody. I'm Jen. This is going to be a live yin class. I'm so happy that you're here. We're a few minutes before, so just give you a few minutes to get set up. For tonight's class, you'll need a bolster if you have one. You can also use a pillow at home, a block if you have it, or a second pillow, and then 1 or 2 blankets, your preference. If you have a strap, I would recommend having that handy too. So again, take your time getting settled and we'll get started in just a few minutes. Thanks for being here. Okay, welcome everybody to our yin practice tonight. It's a beautiful autumn early evening and I'm Jen. I'm super happy to be here. For tonight, we're going to focus on really getting some movement and blood flowing into the hip and pelvic regions, just to kind of get some flow of some blood flowing there, some synovial fluid into the joints. And so if you're just joining us, I suggest that you have a couple of props available tonight, a bolster, if you happen to have one at home, if not a pillow, a block, and 1 or 2 blankets, your preference, and a strap if you have it available. So I'm just gonna move my mat back a little bit so you can see me in the frame here. Okay. So we're gonna start tonight with just finding a nice comfortable rest in Balasana. And before we do, I wanna take a moment here in whatever position you're in right now to just and kind of settle in. Just a quick centering practice. Let the eyes rest. Take a soft gaze down or close the eyelids. And take 3 long, slow, deep breaths. Letting go, settling in, and arriving. And as you come to your mat and you come to this practice this evening, let's do a quick check-in. How are you doing? What do you notice about the body? What do you notice about the mind and the heart right now? And perhaps there's a longing here, a desire arising from the heart, an intention for this time together. Perhaps an intention for this week. And please lay hands on the heart. You can come to Anjali Mudra or just layering the hands over the heart. Taking a moment to really feel and see and visualize this intention as if it's already here. Okay, let's bow head to heart. Let your eyes open slowly taking in your surroundings. And then we'll make our way to a resting child's pose. I recommend a blanket underneath the knees. The bolster can be placed lengthwise. I know it's very blue in here, including the bolster, so hopefully you can see this. Bolster is placed lengthwise, same direction as the mat. And I'm just going to take my block tonight and place it underneath the head of the bolster, furthest away from toward the top of my mat, and then straddle the bolster. So knees are wide, supported by the blanket, tops of the feet on the floor, big toes touching, and tops of the feet also supported by the blanket. Once you feel that you're comfortable with the hips, really kind of snuggle in, almost like you're releasing the sit bones down toward the heels. And then you can keep the spine super long, lengthen as you inhale, and then slowly fold at the hip, coming down into Balasana shape. And we'll just let the arms rest. Palms can be facing down. Bend at the elbows maybe, and forearms on the mat. Take a moment to check in with shoulders. Draw them back and down. And very gently move the head a little bit side to side. Find your breath. Feel the breath in the back body here. Try to equalize the length of the inhalation and the exhalation. And let your body sink into the support of the surface beneath you. Feet, shins, knees, belly, chest, head, arms and hands. Bring your awareness to the tailbone and feel the tailbone lengthening down toward the floor as the crown reaches in the opposite direction. Long spine, relaxed. While we're resting here in this shape, I'm going to bring the awareness to the pelvic floor. And you can visualize the sit bones on either side, left and right. And on the other ends of the pelvis, the base of the pubic bone, tailbone, front and back. Visualize those four corners of the pelvic floor. And just to kind of awaken it, maybe you draw all four corners in toward the center. Gentle contraction there. And then let it release. And we'll just do that a few more times, drawing all four corners, left and right sit bones, pubic bone, and tailbone in toward the center, and then relax. And one more time, just awakening the pelvic floor. And relax and tune into the breath again, even counted breath. And observe the reaction, the response of the pelvic floor to the breath. See if you can sense the movement of the pelvic floor with the breath. This might be very subtle. So just an observation, nothing to change or do here. And you might notice that as you inhale and the diaphragm moves downward, the pelvic floor also moves downward, expands. And as you exhale, the diaphragm moves up toward the throat, toward the head. The pelvic floor does similar action. And see if you can just tune into these two diaphragms here. Feel the dance of the pelvic floor with the diaphragm. Just a few more breaths. Okay. When it feels right, you can slowly make your way out of this shape, walking the hands back toward the knees. Let's move the bolster off to the side and the block also off to the side. And walk the hands forward, coming into tabletop position. So stretch out the backs of those legs. So we'll take one leg out at a time, starting with the right leg. Align your shoulders over wrists. Curl the toes under and reach the heel behind you as you extend in the opposite direction through the crown of the head. Just getting some movement into the back of the leg, some blood flow into the back of the leg. And engage your abdomen and maybe let that leg lift off the floor a little bit, not real high. Keep reaching it back, finding your balance. And let's switch to the other side. Left leg back, curl the toes under, anchor through the ball mound of the big toe, reach the heel back and the head forward, crown of the head. You might move your head a little bit side to side here just to ease any tension in the base of the skull. Feel that length, that blood rushing into the back of the left leg. And then maybe let it lift off the floor a little bit, maintaining your balance, maintaining the length. Good. And then bring that foot back down. Let's come into some hip swaying. We're going to first start with some tail wagging side to side. And I'd like you to emphasize this as much as you can to the right and to the left. You can come down onto forearms if wrists are a challenge. Again, just trying to get some flow into the hip joint, some movement there. Targeting here the external rotators. And then we're going to go in a different direction, in a different plane. We're going to move forward and back. So you might want to walk your hands forward a little bit, come down almost into a plank or a mini up dog, and then move the hips back, deepen the hip creases, reach long with the tail. So you can link this movement to the breath, coming forward in an inhale, moving backward in an exhale. And you can take these big movements as I'm showing right now, or if it feels more accessible to you, you can have some smaller movements. Really just trying to get some opening in the front of the hip, as well as deepening in the hip crease and releasing the low back. So we'll just do one or two more of these. Almost like a dog push-up. And then come back to neutral in your tabletop position, and let's find some circles, really, really big circles, emphasizing the full circle coming forward and back. If you prefer, you can do some figure eights with the hips. That can kind of be a little bit of a mind challenge sometimes. Give that a whirl. Really just getting some heat and some blood flow to the hip region. Go the other direction. Big, big circles. All right. We're going to come down onto our bellies for a short while here. And I want you to start by resting in crocodile pose. So bending the elbows, stacking the arms and the hands, and just resting your head here. Sway the hips a little bit side to side, stimulating that sacral area, releasing any tension in the sacroiliac joints. And then maybe moving the head a little bit side to side, again, stimulating the cranial area, really kind of stimulating that parasympathetic response here in the sacral area and the cranial area. Okay, good. We're going to do a simple stretch here. Bring your right arm alongside the body, bend the right knee, and reach back and hold on to either the ankle, the shin, or maybe your pants. You can keep your head down for this. Keep the other leg long, foot active. And we're really targeting the front of the leg here, the quadricep, the front of the hip flexors. If you want to intensify this a little bit, you can press the foot into the hand. One more inhale here. And then release on an exhale. Move the hips a little bit side to side again and see what you notice. Maybe a little softer breath. Maybe a softer hip on that right side. And then let's move to the left side. Same thing here. Head can stay down. Bend that knee and reach back. And hold on to either the ankle, the shin, or the pants. And if the leg is not accessible to you, sometimes for some people the arm is just not quite long enough to reach. Try to actively bring that heel toward your bottom. Just get as much of a stretch there as you can. And if you are holding on, you can press the foot or the leg into the hand. Last inhale here. And then as you exhale, slowly release. Roll the hips a little bit side to side. And just notice 2 breaths here. Okay. Bring your hands into position for cobra. Fingertips about shoulder height, elbows tucked in. Lengthen through the neck. And we'll just do a few rounds of rolling cobra. Press the tops of the feet down. As you inhale, lengthen through the crown and lift. Squeeze the shoulder blades. And as you exhale, lower back down. Inhale, lengthen and lift. Exhale, lower. As you continue to lengthen down. Let's do a few more. Keeping the fingertips wide, light in the hands. Let the upper back do the work here. Gaze is still down. Back of the neck long, chin slightly tucked. Let's do one more. Okay, stay here for a moment. I want you to find your anchor with the tops of the feet and the legs. Reach down through the pubic bone. Feel that connection there to the surface beneath you. Draw the elbows toward one another. And inhale and lengthen and lift into a cobra one more time. This time we're going to hold it. So find your connection, anchor in the lower body. If this is too intense, you can lower back down. If you want, you can lift the hands up off the floor. Really squeeze those shoulder blades toward one another and keep the breath flowing. Let's do 2 more breaths. And then lower back down. Rest here and notice the heat. Notice the breath, the heartbeat. All right, we're going to make our way up now. So let's bring the hands underneath you, push your body up, and let's walk the right foot forward, coming into a low lunge here. If your block is nearby or your bolster is nearby, you can use that to support your hands. Just want to come into a nice, easy, low lunge. Let the tailbone sink down. Lift the heart. Eyes at the horizon. And as we're staying here, holding, opening up that left hip, see if you can tune in once again to the movement of the pelvic floor as you hold here and breathe. Be very subtle. Last 2 breaths. Okay, to come out, move the hips back. Bolster or block out of the way. And you can move the hips back as you draw the toes up. Maybe use the block for support for just a little bit of length in the back of the leg here. We're going to do a little bit more here in a bit with the strap. Good. Come on out. Back to hands and knees. And real briefly move once again left to right. And then forward and back. So walk your hands forward a little bit. Walk forward. Sorry, move the hips forward and then back. And just see what you notice here compared to our first round of this movement. Let's do just one more. Okay. All right, left side is going to come forward. I'm going to face you all. Left foot's going to come forward now. And I'm doing my left foot, so I'm not mirroring here this time. And then find a place where you can stay in that lunge. Hands can rest on the thigh, the block, or the bolster. Lift your heart. And you might notice this experience of sinking down with each exhalation, letting the tailbone sink downward. Keeping the heart lifted, eyes at the horizon, nice and soft. And then maybe tuning into that dance between the pelvic floor and the respiratory diaphragm. Inhaling, both move down. Exhaling, both draw up. One more breath. Move the hips back to come out, and you can draw the toes up toward your head. Move the hips back, coming into a modified Urdhva Hanumanasana, half split, or modified pyramid, however you want to look at it. Keeping the tail long, spine long. Good, last breath here. Good. Walk the hands forward. Move that leg back. And maybe some circles this time. Big circles in one direction. And notice the shift or the change in the fluidity of the movement now that we've got heat there, we've got blood flow, synovial fluid in the hip joints. Change directions. Should feel a lot smoother, less effortless or less effort. Okay. All right, let's come to a seat. And I would recommend folding your blanket a couple of times. I'm going to use this as a support underneath the hips, underneath the pelvis. And we're going to come into Upavishta Konasana. So legs are going to be wide. Bolster in front. We're going to do something similar to what we did in the beginning, where the bolster, we're going to use the block underneath the end of the bolster to create a little bit of a ramp. You can put it in the higher version or the higher mode of the block. And before we move into this shape, a couple of things that I want to mention. Resist the urge to rush there, okay? So resist the urge to get your face on the bolster or whatever it is that's supporting you. If you don't have a block at home, you could stack a couple pillows under there. So first off, let's make sure that the toes are pointing up, knees are pointing up, straight up toward the ceiling. And you should feel your sit bones on either side. I wouldn't recommend untucking the sit bones, which is a cue that a lot of yoga teachers have used in the past, but just be able to feel that you've got both sit bones anchored. We don't want to put too much strain on the hamstrings, and by untucking the sit bones, we can inadvertently tax the hamstrings a little too much. Okay, so now spine is nice and long, get tall. And I want you to feel that length from the hip crease all the way to the crown. And I'm sitting almost vertically straight right now, okay? And keep that length. And then as you exhale, begin to hinge at the hip, much like you would for a standing forward fold. Take your time, right? And just stay here for a breath. And let the next inhalation lengthen a little bit more, maybe. And the next exhalation, allow a little bit more fold. And so you can mirror what I'm doing here. I've got both forearms on the bolster, shoulders away from the ears. And I'm just resting here. I don't have my head resting at this moment in time. You can certainly, if you've got additional props, blocks, blankets, whatever, you can make another support for the head here. But it's not necessary as long as you're easing your way into the shape. We'll be resting here for a little bit, but not super, super long. You can also stack fists just to give a little bit more height. And just settle in. keeping the knees and the toes pointing up. So the legs are in external rotation here, slightly external rotation. And just as we did in the beginning with our resting Balasana, child's pose, see if you can find your breath in the back body here. Maintain the length of the spine, the integrity of the spine. Just relax into this shape. You might once again play with the sensation of the pelvic floor, dancing with the breath. And maybe even use the support of the blanket underneath you as feedback. Let's do 3 more breaths here. Okay, if the hands are not already on the floor, you can place them there. Resist the urge to pop up. And slowly bring your spine back up, unfolding from the hip crease. Good. When you get there, turn your head to the right and to the left. And then draw a circle down over to the right shoulder. And then back. And then head back to center. Okay, let's move the props out of the way here. We're going to help the legs come back so you can just kind of lift and underneath and shake them out. I'm going to move this so you guys can see me a smidge better here. Let's try that. Okay. Good. So bring the legs forward or straight. Yes. So you're in Dandasana. And let's come into Dandasana. It's going to be a little bit more of an active pose. Certainly, you can use the strap if you'd like around the feet. It's optional. Okay, just try to keep the base of the feet wide, broad, as if you're standing on the floor. You can also, if you want to take a little bit more active variation of this, we're not going to hold it super long. You can bring the hands behind you a little bit. So again, this depends on how long your arms are. If your arms are really long, you might be further back than I am. Fingers pointing toward the toes. And then just lift up the spine nice and long. So there's no weight on my hands here. My arms are externally rotated. If you're not sure, put a bend in the elbows. Draw the shoulder blades toward one another on your back. And then re-lengthen. So feel this heat coming into the core, to the inner thighs, maybe in the belly. Good, last 2 breaths here. Really tall. Okay, and then relax. Let's make our way down to lying on our backs. I'm going to move the blanket that was underneath my hips and place it underneath my head. So you might want to do a similar thing depending on how much support you need underneath the head. And let's start here in constructive rest. Knees bent, feet on the floor. Feel the lengths of the toes. Shoulder blades supported by the surface beneath you. Eyes can rest. Feel the weight of the spine here. Simple posture. Relax the jaw and the tongue. And maybe connect once again with the pelvic floor in this position. Feeling the wave of the breath moving throughout the body, all the way down to the base of the pelvis. Just a couple more here. Okay. We're going to move next into a reclined pigeon or figure four stretch, starting on the right leg. With the right leg, you can reach it up toward the ceiling. Let the ankle rest right below the knee, and put a flex in that right ankle as you let the knee move away from your face. And just as we've been working on with this really long spine, if you want to pick up the left foot and bring that knee towards your chest, try not to compromise the length of the spine here. So keep reaching the tailbone long, and also reaching through the crown as you draw that left knee in. And as always, if you prefer, you can keep the foot on the floor and just rest here. Maybe gently massaging that from the inner thigh across the top of the thigh over to the outside of the thigh to remind that thigh to rotate externally here. So you might feel this a little bit more in the glute area and the external rotators of the hip. And it's really up to you if you'd like to invite a little bit of movement into this shape. I would recommend keeping it small if you're going to do that. Maybe a little rocking back and forth, left and right. Maybe finding stillness. The last couple of breaths here. Okay, put that foot on the floor. If you've lifted it up, take the right leg off. And you might be interested in finding your strap here for a little Supta Asta Padangusthasana. Maybe placing the strap on the heel. The left leg can go long if you want. It can stay bent. And just keeping this gentle. So the knee is straight but not locked. You can pull the toes down toward the head and reach the heel up to activate a little bit more if you'd like. But keep the shoulders in the sockets. Relaxed and easy upper body here. And if you're using a strap, I'm holding it with both hands. You can hold it with one hand if you prefer, but just see if you can let your leg be held by the strap. Maybe a slightly different variation than a more active one here. Okay. Bend the knee. Remove the strap. Let both legs go long. Okay, bend the knees again. Come into reclined pigeon on the left side. All the same things here. Be careful of your knee. This hip is very likely a completely different experience than the first side. So choose wisely if you want to stay here and just encourage that thigh to move outward and away from your face, or if you want to come into a little bit more active variation by lifting the right foot off the floor, holding on behind the thigh. Remembering to keep the spine long here, not compromising the spine as you draw the knee in, and letting the shoulders stay relaxed and easy. Maybe even moving the head side to side to encourage ease in the neck, the jaw, the shoulders. And last few breaths here. And you can release the right foot down. If you've got the strap, place it around the heel of the left foot. And find an easy variation of Supta Asta Padangusthasana on this side. Hand to toe pose. You can let the other leg go long. You don't have to. Just try to let the leg rest there like it's being held. Let go of any gripping. Maybe using the support of the strap to reach the heel up and the toes down. Two more. Okay, bend the knee. Remove the strap. You can place it off to the side. Let both legs go long and put a little bit of space between the legs. And just roll them in so the big toes come toward one another and then out. And then in and out a couple times. Okay. Bend the knees again. And this time we're going to come into a twist. You might want the block to support you. So it's going to be a fairly simple lumbar twist. But again, we're going to be holding it for a little bit, so not too intense. Maybe lift the hips up and shift them a little bit to the left. And then let both knees go to your right. And let that bottom leg find the support of the bolster or the block or the pillow. Move the arms so that they're in a low V. And if you want, you can turn the head to look over the left shoulder. Just resting here into the twist. Letting the legs soften. There's other variations you can take here. You can straighten the top leg if you prefer. Let it rest on the support. Just some options. Bend the knee. Whatever shape of the twist you're in, whichever variation, keep both shoulders anchored onto the floor. And release any tension. Become aware of your breath in the top ribs, in the waist. Resting here for a little bit longer. 4 or 5 breaths, coming out sooner if you need to. When you're ready to come out, do it slowly and with ease. Let an exhale bring the knees back to center. Shift the hips. Maybe do a few rolling bridges. Lengthen and lift on your inhale, lower on the exhale. And then we'll set up for the twist on the other side. So move your bolster or your support to the other side. Shift your hips over to the right. And let both knees drop to the left. Remember, you don't need to take the same variation on both sides. Listen to your body. What does this side need? Maybe the head turns to look over that right shoulder. And just breathing into the top ribs, top waist. Held by the support beneath you. About 4 more breaths here. Let an exhale take you out of the shape, slowly. Recenter the hips. And maybe some rolling bridges again. Real easy, little baby ones. Okay, let's bring knees to the chest. We've got one more pose I'm going to offer for you. You can stay in that pose for our Shavasana resting time or not. I'll give you some cues as to when you might want to come out of it. So it's going to be real simple. You can take your bolster or pillow or folded blanket and place it across your mat. And then we're just going to come into a variation of Baddha Konasana, a resting variation of Baddha Konasana. So soles of the feet together, resting on the bolster. You kind of want your tailbone pretty close to the bolster because the bolster is going to support your shins a little bit. If you don't like this variation, you can move it a little closer to your tail. But I really like the feet supported. And again, we'll stay here, rest here for a bit. If you need to come out at any time, please do. This is our final posture. Putting everything together. Once again, tail is long, spine is long, all the way from tail to crown. Letting the legs be supported here. Letting the shoulders relax. Releasing any tension in the neck, the head side to side. And maybe as you rest here, for a way to keep your mind present, focusing on an even counted breath, whether it's 4-4 count or 5-5, and just tuning into the subtleties of the movement of those two diaphragms. I'm just focusing on these two tonight. Don't force it or worry if it's too subtle and you can't sense it. That's fine. This is a practice. Just sensing. Just experiencing the breath as it's moving through the body right now. Each wave of breath, a gift. Just resting here. Coming back to the breath anytime your mind wanders. Experiencing this wave of breath right here. and this one. All right, coming back, if you would like to transition from this posture to a different resting posture, now is your chance. I would recommend placing your hands on the outsides of the thighs to help bring them together. And the bolster's already there. So if you want to extend the legs, let the bolster support you, that's great. Try to make sure that your feet are supported by something. So the floor, or maybe a folded blanket if they don't quite reach the floor. And of course, you can always take the bolster out completely, coming into Shavasana pose or constructive rest. And settle in. And for our relaxation today, notice if there's any tension remaining in the body. And if so, send your breath to that area and ask it to let go. Let your body sink into the surface beneath you. The bones settle. Nothing more to do. Let the gift of your practice, the energy of your practice, wash over you. You simply rest here, receiving this gift. Bring your awareness back to the breath. This beautiful gift of life nourishing you, supporting you. You can stay where you are in a resting position. Let both hands find the heart. Feel the energy and the aliveness there, right at the heart center. And remember your longing, the heart's desire, your intention for this time, and reaffirm it. Om Shanti. Thank you all for being here, for sharing your practice and your presence with all of us tonight. Have a beautiful evening. Take your time coming out of the position that you're in. So we're going to practice non-rushing here, counting on you. And I'll see you all soon.